So can I just ask you that? You obviously were employed by the BBC initially a while back for X-Ray and a few other things, weren't you?
That's right.
But you I would say gave it all up because you were not a fan of maybe the way they were sort of trying to steer your career down, the path down, because obviously with
No, I mean, I quite a lot of people ask me about that. It was a case of I was there, I was doing really well. I was on TV Central in Birmingham, one of the main presenters. Then I went to BBC South Today as one of the main presenters. And then I got pregnant with my eldest son in 2009.
Yeah.
And, I could see that the media career was just a little bit shallow, and I just wanted to be a mum more. It felt more important to me, that role as being a mum. But then when my son was a bit older, I got offered a full-time job at BBC X-Ray. But I had a part-time admin job offered to me through NUJ Training Wales, so there was no glamour in it, I've been working at BBC X-Ray. I was working with all the presenters and stuff, and but I just always thought it was more important to be a mum when the children were little. And then all the blinking Jimmy Savile stuff broke, and I thought, I couldn't work for the BBC now. I looked at who they were, and I started to meet people that made me realise, whistleblowers, that the BBC just hadn't been doing their job. They really hadn't been listening to the people, and they hadn't been exposing corruption and holding power to account. They were covering things up, horrific things, and more and more comes out. We obviously know a little bit more about Bashir and Panorama and Diana, but there'll just be more and more. And it's the people that I met. So Lenny Harper, he was the investigating officer at the Hotel Grand Jersey Children's Home, and I'd worked at ITV in the Channel Islands, and talking to him a bit more about what really happened, and his view what really happened in relation to the children's remains, or alleged children's remains at that home in Jersey, and how I felt that the media were supporting lying government at times. And I've just been on such a journey, I would say, over the last 4 or 5 years into the truth, into really seeing what's been going on. And the big thing for me that I wasn't aware of is there are some journalists that are not journalists. I'm absolutely sure of that. Their intention is to smear and troll, and their intention is to get good journalists and good influencers. They're being paid by, I don't know where they're being paid, but their agenda is the truth. Their agenda is cover up. Their agenda is smear. So there's been so many topics and so many stories. There's one story about Banksy. I've grown my channels, and it's very exciting because now I've got an opportunity to communicate these stories in a more truthful way and do the kind of journalism that I really wanted the BBC to do, but didn't. Then I'm not going to completely slag off the BBC. And in fact, in the last 6 months, I've become more scared. Google, in some respects, YouTube. There are great people at the BBC. There really are. But there are some people at the top who are not being transparent. And when they make mistakes, they're not saying, cocked up here. There are a couple of BBC panoramas that I think are really dodgy. Some BBC panorama documentaries, rather. And I think people see wrongdoing and they just think, well, it'll go away. No one's perfect. But I think that good media brands now and corporations need to be really transparent and honest. And I know it's difficult, but we need to build trust, especially after this crazy year 2020. But there is such an opportunity now for a new media brand that people really want to be a part of. Not driven by the ego and, oh gosh, working with some television journalists, the on-screen lot. Oh, I was a newspaper journalist. That's what I wanted to be. But I had dyslexia. I'm mildly dyslexic, and I worked at the Guernsey Press. And I kept the news editor kept saying, "Oh, Anna, it's compliment, not compliment." And so you're. And I'd write this newspaper article, and he'd come back, and it would be circled with red. And I'd try, and they ended up putting me on the advertising section of the Guernsey Press.
Right.
And I started writing advertising for jewellery shops. And I thought, this isn't journalism. What's happened? So I realised that although I wanted to be a newspaper journalist, I didn't seem to be so good at the writing. So in terms of the spelling side of things, and that I just wasn't good in that area so much. So I ended up doing the broadcast journalism course at Portsmouth, and that's when I went into TV. And I seem to have more talent in TV. But when you go into TV, these people in TV, on the whole, not everyone, but on the whole, they don't speak to whistleblowers. They don't really are passionate about investigative journalism. I believe, want to be on screen. It's about a lot of it at the time. It's about the ego. It's about being famous.
Yeah.
And a lot of passion. So whenever we do a late news bulletin, the presenter, they'd go back and they'd watch themselves, and they wouldn't go to like a dark pub after work and speak to a whistleblower and find out what's really going on. They didn't really feel that was the agenda or their focus or their desire was to uncover this corruption, hold the media to account, really doing investigative journalism. I saw the girls constantly in the office of the editors wanting more presenterships. And it was more about the ego. So I didn't make a lot of friends on screen, TV news world, but I made a lot of friends in terms of the camera crews and the editors and the production staff, because they just seem more down to earth. And there's so that was kind of my life. And the most important thing is I realised in 2017, working for the National Union of Journalists, who were doing subsidised training courses for NUJ members. Wow, I've got a mobile phone. I can film and edit at speed on a mobile phone, just like I did as a TV reporter, and publish to my own channels. Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it exactly the same way I did as a TV presenter, but I don't need a cameraman. It's not on tape anymore. I don't need ITV. I can build up my channels, and I have. And I've got more audience, a bigger audience, than when I was working in regional TV. And I'm my boss. I'm in control of the content.
Can I just interject, if you don't mind? I'm agreeing with you, but I think, and I think it's Alex Belfield mentioned it recently, when I watched one of his videos. It's all down to
Alex Belfield. Don't tell everyone that.
Huh?
He is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah, I was messaging the other day, but he's brilliant. He comes up on my thing. I mean, your did, but I know we'll talk about your stuff when you're taking stuff off in a second with YouTube. But yeah, Alex, you must put about 10 videos up a day, and it just flashes up on my phone. So I was watching stuff. But he was saying something about, I know that you probably agree as well, and I think you will agree. Most of these people that work, the newsreaders you see on the screen, they're sort of tied in with these contracts, and because they've got, say, mortgages to pay, I know it's all down vanity as well, but I think, that they don't go against their corporation, they don't go against the status quo when it comes to interviews, and seek out, like you say, these dodgy sort of backstreet, in a pub and having an interview with somebody that somebody's going to say something controversial because they don't want to lose their job and lose their sort of livelihoods.
Yeah, no, I understand that, of course, and I really appreciate that. You've got a mortgage and young children, and it's your only source of income. You're in a very difficult position. But in that circumstance, I guess if I was in that situation and I was in a media organisation where I felt we were smearing good people, like the way the Guardian had done to the Great Barrington Declaration, I would get together with people within the organisation and I would out them. I'd do a little response movement. That's what I would do. I would try to bring about changes in numbers. So, if there's a group of people in the BBC listen to this and they want to get together, they will be able to get together and put pressure on the management to say, you do this or we're going to expose you. And I think that's what we haven't had in this crisis over 2020. We've had the lineup of doctors, the American frontline doctors, the Belgian doctors. We have these lining up for these press conferences. What about all these journalists? When are we going to get you all lining up saying, we want to speak to Professor Robert Endres, we want to speak to Dr. Roger Hodgkinson, we want to speak to Professor Dolores Kyle. We haven't been able to. We want to give a balanced debate in relation to Marsh, and we haven't been able to. We haven't seen the media whistleblowers, so that's disappointing.
And it's, it's thanks to people like yourself who've interviewed these type of people and put it on their YouTube. But, I'll talk about it in a second where you've obviously taken things down. But, but then you see people like YouTube, Talk Radio that have got these interviews on their site still.
Well, let's talk about an example, okay?
Yeah.
So I think the big influence this year in getting people to maybe see things from a different, more balanced to the debate or a different voice would be the Great Barrington Declaration. So the professors from Harvard, Oxford and Stanford, the Great Barrington Declaration has really been very important this year, and also Dr. Mike Eden. So I got in touch with Dr. Mike Eden in the early days, interviewed him end of October. That video sat very nicely on YouTube. It did very well, 300,000 views.
Yeah.
But then Facebook didn't like it. Facebook called it fake news. Okay?
Mm.
And then a month later, Facebook page called Unlocked interviewed Mike Eden, and Facebook have allowed Dr. Mike Eden, and that's got 500,000 views. So I've seen these channels change their views. So Facebook and Twitter at the moment have been really good to me.
Okay.
Even Vimeo less so. But then it was a different situation a couple of months ago. So I was in a very fortunate position. I don't know if anyone else is a journalist in a situation where I had 70,000 followers on YouTube, 70,000 on Twitter, and 70,000 on Facebook. And I was watching what was being allowed and what wasn't. But it's messy. It's inconsistent. I think, if I was Mark Zuckerberg or I was the head of YouTube and the government was saying to me, you've got to get rid of anything anti-vax. You've got to get rid of any messages that confuse the public when it comes to public health. If you don't do that, we'll shut you down. Mm. So, really, they're in a position where they have no choice. They're not allowed to allow this debate to take place, which is all I've ever campaigned for, was choice and debate. That's all I ever wanted, and that's all that really is. Right at the beginning of this in March, when they first started censoring doctors on YouTube, that's when I was frightened. And I also did an interview very early days with Professor Mark Ryan from University of Birmingham, where he was very concerned about contact tracing apps and how we were just giving our data away without any scrutiny or conversation. and it was censorship and surveillance that really were flagging up to me, and I just didn't see journalists talking about it. They were all just hysterical around lockdown. Yeah. Going for a walk. I remember that, and I want to write a book, called The Year the World Went Mad. The beginning of lockdown, I live in a village near Penarth in the Vale of Glamorgan, and people were going for a walk in my village, and they were being shouted at. You're not from this village. Do you remember that? Yeah, I do. I remember that. I went on your Facebook and said, listen, there may be a mother in a flat with no garden. She's maybe a single parent with 5 kids, so she's got no school. The playgrounds have all got padlocks on them, so she goes for a walk in our village, which has got tons and tons of space, and you come out and shout at her. Have you gone mad? Yes, the world went mad. So I really, when I have a moment to think about maybe writing a book, I don't think I realised how stupid some people were, and I'm angry that we allowed ourselves to treat each other like this. Of course, there was a risk, and people have died, especially the vulnerable, but we had a chance to protect the vulnerable and build up herd immunity over the summer. Focused protection. It seems to be the attitude of top epidemiologists all around the world. We didn't do it, and I don't know why. And maybe in a few years' time I'll be wrong. But in a few years' time we'll look back on this year, and I think we'll have a lot to learn.
I think you're right, but it's all about trial and error. But I think they've made more error than trial. Without even trying things.
No, I could look like a complete fool next year, or I could look like the most sensible, passionate, journalist who, with authority and trust. Or I could just look like I just created a chaos and stressful year that was already chaotic and stressful. I mean, my mum's changed her view. At the beginning of it all, she just said, well, we have to trust the government, we have to trust the BBC, we all need to stick together and do as we're told. But as things went on, and as we saw more and more suffering, especially in terms of children, and I've seen a huge reduction in mental health services for children. Yeah. Children, it's just so many stories, children wearing masks, everything's by Zoom. It's just what we've done to children. So my mum's view started to change more and more, and she started to say, actually, this is starting to look a bit creepy. I'm getting quite concerned now.
You're right.
With my family in Oakham. So, yeah, like you say, what are we going to think next year? What do you think? How are we going to view this year, next year? I don't know.
It's barking. It's like you say about the kids. My daughter, she's in secondary school. It's the same school, but it's like the senior side of the school now, and they've got to wear masks now in the playground. I'm thinking, what's that about? I just, initially they weren't, and now outside.
You're right. Horrible. I do have to do a book. I must write a book because right at the beginning of this, there were a few odd schools. And I was speaking to someone called Christine Brett from Ask for Them. It was a campaign for children to not be impacted so harshly by this situation because even the government had said they're pretty much zero risk. They are zero risk themselves of getting it, apart from the ones that are vulnerable with health conditions. And we're putting them in masks in the playground. And I remember at the beginning of this, Christine Brett was telling me from Us for Them, there's a few schools in England, and I thought, this is awful, I've got to help those schools in England, we've got to start campaigning. And then it just spread, and then it affected all schools, and I thought, and I have got definitely this coldest distance, they say that it's like a frog in a pot of boiling water, turning the temperature up slowly. Yeah. If Anna Brees from March 2020 spoke to Anna Brees from December 2020 and said, look, Anna, this is what's going to happen this year. I think I'd be fighting more than I am now. I think I'd be more shocked than I am now because it's happened so gradually.
Yeah.
And all these freedoms have been eroded. Big ones are not being able to protest. The big things for me are not being able to see the elderly in care homes, the reduction in mental health services for children wearing masks, big businesses that have failed, that have been built up over years and years and years, the creeping surveillance in terms of contact tracing, not being able to use cash. What do you think are the big issues?
Yeah, I was saying about the freedoms that we seem to be given by our sort of illustrious leader, Mark Drakeford. And I'm thinking, well, we live in a free country as it is, and I always think we should make a decision whether we want to. I know we got to protect the vulnerable. I do, and I've got 76. He's had COVID. He's fine now. I think he's fine. Long term we don't know, but he's fine. He's back to normal health. But he's 76, and he was a bit sceptical. But then he told me he's never felt so ill in his life. So I'm thinking, okay, I believe my dad. My dad's ex-miner, ex-boxer, all the rest. It's tough as chips. But then it was just a case of, for me, you can't go anywhere without all this, like, people knowing where you're going or where you've been. You've got to sort of check in and use these apps, these scan these codes. And then when you go to a restaurant or bar, you've got to give your name and address if you don't do the code. And then you've got to wear a mask everywhere you go. And I'm thinking, then when you see people out and about and they're walking around outside in the open air and they're wearing masks, or they're driving the car by themselves wearing a mask. And I'm thinking, well, the press or the BBC or the ITV or the Sky News have played a blinder here, because they're scaring people into thinking that, they're going to die of something which 99 or whatever, I mean, you can argue percentages, but you're talking more than 90% of people wouldn't even get this. And it's just a case of, I always think, well, you can get the flu, you can catch anything, any illness or whatever, but it's down to you if you catch it, you don't wrap up warm, or you get a cold, or, you mix with people that have got, say, certain bugs, you know what I mean? But it's like they're telling you can or can't do, or you can't do, not you can do, but you can't do a lot of things that you should be able to do. And that's what's...
It's temporary, isn't it? They're basically saying it's temporary until we get vulnerable vaccinated. I think a lot of people would just say, my mum said, I'll do as I'm told, and unless, so many people said this, I'll do as I'm told unless they bring in mandatory vaccinations. That's the big thing, and I've got politicians I speak to who say that. If they bring in mandatory vaccination, that's the big, that's the moment when people think, I don't like the sound of that. Yeah. And we, these people who have to wear masks all day in employment, in shops and stuff, they're going to be desperate to take the vaccine because they don't want to wear a mask anymore. It's not comfortable. I've seen people get all sorts of rashes. It's not pleasant, and it's not nice to not be able to smile at each other, to see people's eyes. So, I looking forward now, it's been a year where we've given away so much. but we felt that we did it for the right reasons to protect each other. And there has to be some coordination and organisation in terms of a society. Even if your government are misguided by the science, and they were made the wrong decisions, it was nice in a way, it was good in a way that we did do as we were told, because how else do we operate, It would just be complete chaos, wouldn't it? People who've been wearing a mask, I suppose, have really genuinely felt they were protecting others and they were at risk.
Yeah.
I don't really feel for everyone in a situation. And you've always got to see things from other people's perspectives, just like you said about the journalists who have a mortgage to pay, and may have young children, and they don't feel comfortable what they're doing or saying. But let's see what happens next year. And already, this vaccination situation, I'm not getting involved in the vaccine debate. I have some concerns about how quickly it's gone through. But if people just go and look and do some research and make up their own minds before they make that decision about vaccination, what I'm really very scared about is that we have to be vaccinated to go to work, to go on public transport, to even go to school. Now that's something that I need a break really for the next few months, because if that's brought in, you'll see a different Anna Brees. I'm going full out for that one. I'm not going to have that. And I've got some wonderful, wonderful people I've connected with on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Top doctors, immunologists, epidemiologists, business people, cybersecurity firms, leaders in their respected fields who want to help build something that we trust, that is a proper media service that allows balance and debate and allows us to make up our own mind. I mean, what have we lost this year, like you say? I mean, we've got to get back some kind of dignity as a species as well. Some kind of agency. This is my life. This is how I want to live my life. This is how I want to spend my Christmas and who I want to see. That is something we have given away. We must get our dignity back. And there are so many wonderful people I'm working with now that are going to help make this year a positive year, a reset year that's not a reset year where we kind of everything's burned to the ground, but everything that's built back up again is something beautiful and fresh that we trust and we love and we feel part of. We feel like we have a voice. So it's exciting. It's exciting, the future.
And the reason why I sort of laughed when you mentioned vaccination is because it's a rabbit warren of it opens up so much. But I know you mentioned it about how quick the vaccination's being created, and that's why I laugh, because it's normally 10 years plus. I'm not a
3 or 4 years I've heard from.
Okay.
Someone who I trust who hasn't come out. They reckoned, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and I'm not going to talk about vaccination. I don't want to. And if you've recorded this interview, I'll be happy to put it on YouTube, but there's certain things I've got to be very careful about saying now, because I've got some issues with censorship on YouTube and Vimeo, and I don't want to lose my YouTube channel.
No. I don't want to lose mine.
I'll be honest, I'm not going to say that I'm not hiding anything. I honestly don't know about the vaccine, and I'm not going to be getting involved in that. No. It's for people to decide. If your body, if I went and said take the vaccine and I was wrong, just imagine, if there were side effects. If I said don't take the vaccine and I was wrong, I'm not experienced. I don't know anything about vaccination. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if I give you my example, for myself, I'm just on the belief where I wouldn't have it straight away. I wouldn't. So I just think I'll let others have it first, and then I'm just a bit skeptical about side effects. That's just me personally, and when it comes down to the case of you've got to have it forcibly, you've got to have it, and that's when I'm start raising my eyebrows even higher than they already are. So that's just me. And like I said, I don't want to get this taken off anyways. So, but yeah, I agree with you. It's for everybody to make their own decision, and if they want to make whatever decision they choose, it's on them. But
anyway, have you got enough from me now? Because I've got to pop into to see my neighbour.
Yeah, just a quick one more, if you don't mind. I was going to say about you obviously had stuff taken, you've taken stuff off YouTube and Vimeo, and I guess that's because you've become so popular now. You've got the voice and you've got sort of the traffic. But we all don't want you to be taken off there because you're fantastic at what you do. But is that at the back of your mind thinking maybe you've got to sort of tread lightly on a lot of things? I know you just mentioned that other subject we're not going to talk or I won't mention again. But does that mean that going forward you might be a bit like walking on eggshells?
Vulnerable?
Yeah, vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, I've got two community strikes on YouTube. One for sharing Dr. Roger Hodkinson, saying, is this genuine? Please check it out before you share it, because it was a video going viral of Dr. Roger Hodkinson. It did turn out to be authentic, and I ended up interviewing Dr. Roger Hodkinson. I was the first journalist in the world to do so. And the second one was Dr. Heike Söning, who came over from Germany to speak at a protest in London at Trafalgar Square on the 26th of September. He was arrested at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, ended up in Wandsworth Police Station for 20 hours. When he came out, he gave a speech. I shared that on YouTube. I got a community strike for that. Concerning. Do I want to work for YouTube when they do that kind of stuff? It's just like the BBC, isn't it? I don't want to work for you if you don't let me share important information from credible sources. But it's a big channel. I'm building up my email database, so please, if anyone's listening, do join that, because that is a way to communicate. I'll always find a way to communicate. I'll learn to fly a plane, and I'll flip from the sky. And I'll do that for my children, I will do it for democracy, and I will always find a way.
Thank you, Anna.